The Galactic Concord had maintained peace across 17,000 star systems for 1,042 standard years, until the humans arrived. Commander Vix Lorath of the Concord Security Fleet stared at the holographic display in disbelief. The strange vessel had appeared at the edge of the Meridian system without warning. No wormhole signature, no quantum wake, no subspace distortion. One moment empty space, the next a ship unlike any in the Concord registry. Impossible, Lorath whispered, her 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. Nothing travels that way. Science Officer Ronek moved beside her, mandibles clicking nervously. It appears to have folded space. The math shouldn't work, but evidently someone didn't inform these newcomers. The alien vessel was brutally utilitarian. No elegant curves like Palaxian designs, none of the crystalline symmetry favored by the Vesh. Just hard angles, massive engines, and what appeared to be weapons. Lots of weapons! Open communications, Lorath ordered, straightening her ceremonial cape. First contact procedures were clear, welcoming, diplomatic, and above all, peaceful. The holographic display flickered, and a bipedal being appeared. 2 arms, 2 legs, a single head with forward-facing eyes and peculiar fur on top. The being wore some kind of fitted uniform with insignia Lorath couldn't recognize. This is Captain Orion Kask of the Terran expeditionary vessel Horizon's Edge. We come in peace and seek diplomatic relations with your civilization. The translation matrix struggled momentarily before rendering the alien language into standard. Lorath performed the traditional Concord greeting, crossing her upper limbs while extending her lower ones. Welcome to Concord Space, Captain Kask. I am Commander Vix Lorath. Your method of arrival is unexpected. The human's mouth formed what the xenopsychology database later identified as a smile, a non-threatening display of teeth among their kind. Yes, our fold drive. We've only recently perfected it. The ability to bypass conventional space-time limitations has opened up the galaxy to us. Behind her, Ronek whispered, 1,000 races working together for a millennium, and none discovered this technology. Yet these humans simply appear with it. The human captain continued. We bring greetings from Earth and the 17 colonies of the Terran Alliance. We hope to establish peaceful relations and perhaps exchange knowledge. Of course, Lorath replied smoothly, though her skin was shifting to a troubled azure hue. The Concord welcomes all peaceful species, though I must inform the High Council of your arrival immediately. What Lorath didn't say was that the Concord maintained peace through careful balance. New species were integrated slowly over decades, with technologies carefully regulated across all members. No single race held an advantage that might destabilize the delicate equilibrium. This human ship had just shattered that paradigm. Within hours, the Horizon's Edge was escorted to Meridian Prime, the system's diplomatic hub. News of the humans spread faster than light speed through the quantum relay network. By the time Captain Kask stood before the local Concord representatives, 17 different species had dispatched observers. Ambassador Peller Vaunt, a Sophian with translucent skin that revealed the complex thoughts pulsing through his neural pathways, addressed the human delegation. Captain Kask, while we welcome you officially to Concord Space, I must express certain concerns. Your technology represents a significant disruption to established order. Kask's expression remained pleasant. We understand your caution, Ambassador. Humanity has learned from its own troubled history that power requires responsibility. Then you'll understand why we must request complete technical specifications of your fold drive, Vaunt replied. The Concord operates on principles of shared advancement. The captain's smile never wavered, but something shifted in his eyes. I'm afraid I can't do that, Ambassador. The drive schematics remain classified. However, we're open to discussing trade agreements, cultural exchange, and non-critical technology sharing. The ambassador's skin flushed crimson with alarm signals. That is not how the Concord operates, Captain. All member species share all technologies for the common good. We're not members yet, Kask replied simply, and Earth's history has taught us caution about surrendering technological advantages. No one in the diplomatic hall realized it then, but that exchange was the first crack in the Concord's 1,000-year peace. The Grand Council chamber on Harmony Station hummed with agitated energy. Representatives from 32 of the Concord's most influential species had gathered for an emergency session, the first in over 2 centuries. Supreme Counselor Ezitar, whose species had been among the founding members of the Concord, addressed the assembly from the central podium. His crystalline exoskeleton refracted light in patterns that conveyed deeper emotional context to those who could perceive the spectrum. For a millennium, we have maintained peace through equality and transparency. The Supreme Counselor's melodious voice resonated through the chamber. No species may possess technological advantage over others. This human vessel threatens everything we've built. The recently arrived human ambassador, Lyra Neves, stood calmly at the assignation point for new species. Her dark skin contrasted with the silver white of her close-cropped hair, and unlike many representatives who wore ceremonial attire, she had chosen a simple charcoal suit with minimal ornamentation. The Terran Alliance appreciates the Concord's concerns, Ambassador Neves began, her voice steady. However, we come from a region where we developed in isolation. Our history is marked by competition that drove innovation, but also by terrible conflicts that taught us restraint. Then demonstrate this restraint, interjected Counselor Dovkar of the Volaran sovereignty, tendrils waving in agitation. Share your full-drive technology and join the Concord as equals. Neves shook her head slightly. We cannot, not yet. Humanity has only recently unified after centuries of division. Our technological advantages are what protect our 17 worlds from potential threats. We seek friendship, not subservience. The chamber erupted in multiple languages and communication forms. Some representatives flashed bioluminescent patterns, others released pheromones of distress, and many simply shouted in their native tongues. The translation matrices struggled to keep pace. Supreme Counselor Ezitar raised his upper limbs, calling for order. Ambassador Neves, you must understand our position. For 1,000 years, no single species has held significant technological advantage over others. This is the foundation of our peace. And yet, Neves replied, her voice cutting through the chaos, your 1,000 years of peace has produced stagnation. Our scientists examined your public databases. The Concord hasn't produced a transformative innovation in over 3 centuries. Silence fell over the chamber. It was a truth many had observed, but few had voiced. Ambassador Neves continued, humanity offers a third path, neither complete technological surrender nor isolation. We propose limited integration, cultural exchange, and collaborative research on non-critical technologies. Unacceptable, declared Counselor Marivix of the Palaxian Collective, his feathered crest flaring. The Concord cannot have tiered membership. It undermines our very foundation. As the debate intensified, Fleet Admiral Jovek of the Concord Security Force moved quietly to the Supreme Counselor's side. The Admiral's scales shifted to a deep indigo as she whispered, our intelligence networks report 17 more human vessels have been detected at the edges of Concord space, all using this fold drive technology. Eztar's crystalline structure momentarily dulled, the equivalent of a shocked expression. They sent an exploration fleet without authorization. Not a fleet, Admiral Jovek corrected. Independent vessels, each approaching different sectors. They're making contact with individual systems directly, bypassing Central Concord protocols. In the center of the chamber, Ambassador Neves continued addressing the assembly, seemingly unaware of this revelation. Humanity has much to offer beyond just technology. Our cultural diversity, our artistic expressions, our unique philosophical perspectives. Ambassador, Supreme Counselor Ezitar interrupted, his tone now sharp enough that the translation Matrix rendered it with a warning indicator. We have reports of multiple human vessels entering conquered space without authorization. How do you explain this breach of diplomatic protocol? If Neves was surprised, she didn't show it. The Terran Alliance authorized exploration missions to make peaceful contact throughout this region. We saw no reason to limit our introduction to a single point. This is precisely why the Concord exists, Councillor Davakar's tendrils whipped in fury. To prevent unregulated expansion and the chaos it brings. Ambassador Neves straightened her posture, her expression resolute. With respect, Councillor. Humanity did not agree to your regulations before arrival. We come in peace, but we come on our terms. As arguments erupted again across the chamber, Admiral Jovek received another priority communication. Her scales paled to near white. Supreme Counselor, she whispered, the Vesh oligarchy has deployed their defense fleet. They're moving to intercept the human vessel in their territory. For the first time in 1,000 years, the prospect of armed conflict loomed over the Concord. Captain Mira Vega of the Terran vessel Pathfinder watched through the bridge viewport as the Vesh defensive squadron surrounded her ship. 7 crystalline vessels arranged in perfect geometric formation, their hulls shimmering with energy patterns that the Pathfinder's sensors couldn't fully analyze. They're hailing us again, Captain, reported Communications Officer Darius Riker, his fingers hovering over the console. Their tone has escalated. Vega nodded. She was 38 standard Earth years old, with experience in both diplomacy and combat, a combination increasingly common among Terran captains. On screen, the holographic display materialized to show a Vesh commander. The crystalline being's faceted surface refracted light in complex patterns that supplemented their verbal communication. Terran vessel, the translation came through. You have entered Vesh sovereign space without authorization from the Conquered Central Authority. Power down your propulsion and weapon systems immediately and prepare to be escorted to the nearest diplomatic outpost. Captain Vega maintained a neutral expression. Commander, we've already explained our presence is peaceful. The Terran Alliance has dispatched vessels throughout this region to establish diplomatic relations with all spacefaring civilizations. Unacceptable, the Vesh commander's crystalline structure flashed patterns of authority and warning. All diplomatic contact must be centrally coordinated through Concord protocols. Your vessel will power down now, or we will be forced to disable it. First Officer Elian Nassar moved closer to the captain's chair. Their weapons are charging. Captain, nothing our shields can't handle, but their intent is clear. Vega considered her options. The Pathfinder could easily outmaneuver the Vesh squadron. The fold drive could have them halfway across the sector before the crystalline ships. Could react, but that would only escalate tensions. Commander, Vega addressed the Vesh, I propose a compromise. We will remain at this position, maintaining our current system status while I consult with my government. I request 2 hours to receive updated instructions. The Vesh commander's surface rippled with what the cultural database suggested was suspicion. 1 hour. Any attempt to activate your fold drive will be considered hostile action. The transmission ended. Open a secure channel to Ambassador Neves, Vega ordered, and run a complete tactical analysis of the Vesh squadron. Non-invasive scans only. While her crew complied, Vega studied the Vesh vessels. Despite their beautiful crystalline appearance, she recognized military precision in their formation. The Concord claimed to be a peaceful cooperative, yet maintained significant defensive capabilities. Within minutes, Ambassador Neves's image appeared on the holographic display. Behind her, the sounds of heated debate could be heard from the Grand Council chamber. Captain Vega, your timing is problematic, Neves stated without preamble. The Concord Council just learned about our distributed approach to first contact. They're not pleased. Neither are the Vesh, Vega replied. They've surrounded the Pathfinder and threatened to disable us if we don't power down and submit to escort. Neves frowned. This is unexpected. The Concord claims to operate on principles of peaceful integration. Peace maintained through strict control, it seems, Vega observed. Your recommendations, Ambassador? The situation here is delicate, Neves replied. If you use the fold drive to leave Vesh space, it will confirm their fears about our technology and intentions. If you submit to their demands, we establish a precedent of acquiescence to conquered authority. Vega nodded. A third option, then, The deadline approached, Captain Vega reopened communications with the Vesh squadron. The commander's crystalline form appeared more rigid than before, a sign of heightened alert status. Your time has expired, Terran vessel. What is your decision? Vega stood, hands clasped behind her back. Commander, I've received instructions from my government. The Pathfinder will neither flee nor power down. Instead, we extend an invitation. Select a delegation to come aboard our vessel. See for yourselves that we harbor no ill intent. Experience human hospitality firsthand. The Vesh commander seemed startled by this proposal, facets flickering in what the cultural database suggested was rapid internal communication. You invite us aboard your vessel? Yes, Vega confirmed. Complete transparency within reasonable security parameters. We'll even prepare refreshments compatible with Vesh biochemistry. The commander's crystalline surface rippled with what appeared to be confusion. This is not protocol. Perhaps not, Vega acknowledged, but it is human. We believe in face-to-face diplomacy, in breaking bread together, figuratively speaking. If the Concord truly values peaceful cooperation, demonstrate it with this small act of trust. After several moments of silence, the Vesh commander responded, I will come personally with 2 advisors. Any detection of deception or threat will result in immediate action from my squadron. Understood, Vega replied with a slight smile. We look forward to welcoming you aboard. As the communication ended, First Officer Nassar approached. Bold. Strategy, Captain. The Terran Diplomatic Corps hasn't authorized direct cultural exchange yet. Sometimes diplomacy requires improvisation, Vega replied, watching as one of the crystalline ships detached from the formation and moved toward the Pathfinder. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's improvising. The quantum-encrypted transmission arrived at all 17 human vessels simultaneously. Proceed with caution. Concord political structure. Fracturing. Avoid confrontation where possible. Continue diplomatic initiatives with receptive species. Admiral Qasim Reyes reviewed the message from Terran Command for the 3rd time, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of his flagship, the Prometheus. At 57, Reyes had witnessed humanity's expansion from a single star system to a modest but vibrant alliance of colonies. He had advocated for caution when the fold drive was discovered, but the opportunities it presented had overwhelmed such concerns. Status report on the diplomatic initiatives, he requested. His executive officer, Commander Ellis Jang, brought up a sector map showing the positions of all 17 Terran vessels scattered throughout conquered space. Mixed results. Admiral, 7 vessels report positive engagement with local authorities. 5 are in holding patterns similar to Captain Vega's situation with the Vesh. 3 have been officially requested to leave their sectors. And 2, Zhang hesitated. Speak freely, Commander. 2 report being targeted by weapon systems, sir. The Intrepid in the Palaxian sector and the Dauntless near the Mrevik's homeworld. No shots fired, but the message is clear. Reyes studied the map thoughtfully. And what about unofficial communications? Zhang smiled slightly. That's where things get interesting. We're receiving thousands of encrypted communication attempts from individual members of various species. Scientists, merchants, artists, all reaching out directly to our vessels, bypassing their governments. The peoples of the conquered are curious about us, Reyes mused. More than curious, sir. Many express frustration with conquered restrictions on technological development. The fold drive has become a symbol. It represents innovation outside their controlled framework. Reyes walked to the viewport, watching as the Prometheus maintained position at the edge of a trinary star system. Below them, the inhabited world of Kelnar Prime teemed with life, a maritime civilization that had been part of the Concorde for 6 centuries. The Concorde maintained peace by eliminating competition, Reyes said quietly. Noble goal, but at what cost? 1,000 years of technological stagnation, of cultural homogenization? Their representatives don't see it that way, Zhang pointed out. To them, we're the disruptors, the dangerous variable. And they're not. Wrong, Reyes acknowledged. History shows that rapid technological asymmetry often leads to conflict. But humanity learned those lessons the hard way. The ship's AI announced an incoming transmission from the planet below. Reyes nodded for Zhang to accept it. A Kelnari appeared on screen, humanoid but clearly adapted for aquatic environments, with iridescent scales and gill structures visible at the neck. Unlike previous formal communications, this being wore no official insignia. Admiral Reyes, the translator rendered the bubbling language into standard. I am Dr. Nivari Zell, Chief Scientist of the Kelnari Institute of Applied Physics. I request private communication on matters of mutual scientific interest. Reyes exchanged a glance with Zhang before responding. I'm available now, Dr. Zell. This channel is secure. The Kelnari scientist seemed to hesitate, gill structures fluttering in what the cultural database suggested was nervousness. What I am about to say contradicts official Concorde policy. The Kelnari Science Consortium has reviewed the limited data on your fold drive from long-range scans. We believe we understand the theoretical principles, but Concorde restrictions have prevented us from pursuing similar technology for centuries. Reyes maintained a neutral expression. I'm listening. We propose a clandestine exchange, Zell continued, not of complete technology, but of theoretical frameworks. There are significant advances in quantum computation that we've developed, but haven't been permitted to implement fully. These could benefit humanity, while your theoretical approach to space folding would advance our work. Dr. Zell, Reyes replied carefully. What you're suggesting would violate Concorde protocols. The scientists' bioluminescent patterns intensified. Protocols that have kept my people from achieving our potential for 600 years. The Concorde began with noble intentions, but it has evolved into a system that preserves power for the founding species, while newer members remain perpetually disadvantaged. Commander Zhang stepped forward. Doctor, are your views shared by others in the Concorde? More than the Supreme Council would like to admit, Zell replied. Particularly among the newer member species from the last few centuries. We joined a cooperative of equals, only to find ourselves eternally catching up to established powers. Reyes considered his options carefully. Humanity had hoped to establish relations with the Concorde as a unified entity, but the reality was proving more complex. The transmission from Terran Command acknowledged this fracturing. Perhaps this was an opportunity. Dr. Zell, Reyes finally said, I cannot authorize technology transfer without approval from my government. However, I would welcome further dialogue about theoretical physics. Perhaps we could arrange a scientific conference, one focused on principles rather than applications. The Kelnari's bioluminescence shifted to patterns suggesting cautious optimism. The Concorde monitors all official scientific gatherings. Then perhaps an unofficial gathering, Reyes suggested. A cultural exchange with scientific elements. Nothing that violates the letter of Concorde law. That might be possible, Zell agreed. I will consult with colleagues from other systems who share similar interests. After the transmission ended, Commander Zhang looked troubled. Admiral, If multiple species are seeking to circumvent Concord technology protocols, then the 1,000-year peace was already fracturing before we arrived. Reyes finished the thought. We didn't cause this, Commander. We just accelerated what was already in motion. Zhang nodded slowly. Sir, should we inform Terran Command about Dr. Zell's proposal? Yes, Reyes decided, but recommend we proceed carefully. Humanity didn't cross interstellar space to become entangled in someone else's civil conflict, but we cannot ignore potential allies either. As if on cue, the ship's AI announced another incoming transmission, this one from the Concord Central Authority, marked urgent. The Terran embassy on Harmony Station had been hastily converted from guest quarters 3 weeks earlier. Ambassador Lyra Neves stood at the window, watching the constant flow of diverse species through the station's central promenade. Despite the appearance of normalcy, she knew that emergency sessions of the Concord Council continued around the clock. They've been deliberating for 6 days, noted diplomatic attaché Kai Imari, scrolling through reports on his tablet. No precedent for such a prolonged emergency session in Concord history. Because there's no precedent for us, Neves replied, turning from the window. At 53, she had navigated humanity through multiple first-contact scenarios, but never on this scale. An entire multi-species confederacy with 1,000 years of established protocols. The Concord operates on consensus. 17,000 member systems must agree on how to respond to humanity. And they're failing to reach consensus, Imari observed. Our intelligence suggests at least 3 major factions have formed. Neves nodded. The traditionalists want us to surrender the fold drive technology or leave Concord space entirely. The moderates propose conditional membership with technology sharing over time. And the reformists see us as an opportunity to reshape the entire Concord, Imari finished. Primarily newer member species who feel constrained by the established power structures. A soft chime announced the arrival of a message. Imari checked his tablet and his eyebrows rose. Ambassador, Supreme Counselor Ezitar requests a private meeting. In person. Here. Neves straightened her jacket. That's unprecedented. The Supreme Counselor never leaves the council chamber during deliberations. He's already on his way. Security scans show just one aide accompanying him. 30 minutes later, the crystalline form of Supreme Counselor Ezitar entered the Terran embassy. In person, his presence was even more striking. Nearly 2 meters tall, his exoskeleton refracting light in complex patterns that seemed to ripple with each movement. Ambassador Neves, his melodious voice filled the room without seeming loud. I appreciate your willingness to meet without formal protocols. Supreme Counselor, Neves bowed slightly. This is an unexpected honor. Ezitar's crystalline structure shifted in what the cultural database identified as a gesture of urgency. I come to you directly because time is short. The council deliberations have reached an impasse that threatens the very foundation of the Concord. Neves gestured to a seating area designed to accommodate various physiologies. Please explain. Once seated, Ezitar's aide activated a privacy field that would prevent any form of surveillance, a technology the humans hadn't seen before. What I am about to share is known only to the inner council, Ezitar began. The peace maintained by the Concord has never been as perfect as we present to our citizens. Twice in our 1,000-year history, we faced moments when everything nearly collapsed. Neves leaned forward slightly, fully alert. 3 centuries ago, the Palaxian Collective developed a weapon of such destructive potential that it could have given them dominance over all other species. The Concord Central Authority took action. The research facility was destroyed in what history records as an industrial accident. You're saying the Concord sabotaged a member species' research? Neves asked, keeping her tone neutral. To preserve the balance, yes, Ezitar admitted, his crystalline structure dimming slightly, a sign of regret. Later, When the Mariviks discovered principles of consciousness transfer that would have granted them effective immortality, we engineered a data corruption that set their research back by centuries. The Concord maintains peace through technological suppression, Neves concluded. Through balance, Ezetar corrected. No single species can be permitted advancement that would fundamentally alter power dynamics. It is the price of our peace. And now humanity has arrived with the fold drive, Neves said, understanding dawning. A technology that cannot be easily neutralized because it's already deployed across multiple vessels. Precisely. The Supreme Counselor's voice carried unmistakable tension. Ambassador, the Concord is fracturing into factions. The traditionalists are calling for immediate action against your vessels to capture or destroy the fold drive technology by force if necessary. Neves maintained her composure despite the implied threat. That would mean war with humanity. A war none of us want, Ezetar agreed. But some believe it preferable to watching the Concord collapse. Meanwhile, dozens of member species are already approaching your captains with proposals for technological exchange outside of conquered protocols. Like the Kelnari, Neves noted, watching for reaction. The crystalline being's surface rippled with confirmation. Yes, we are aware of Dr. Zell's overtures, and of similar approaches from the Vesh, the Mreviks, and others. What you may not understand is that such exchanges would shatter our balance irreparably. What are you asking of humanity, Supreme Counselor? Ezetar rose to his full height, his crystalline structure pulsing with what the database identified as extreme stress. I am asking for time, Ambassador. Delay any technological exchange with individual member species. Allow the Council to find a path forward that preserves our unity. And if we refuse, then I cannot control what happens next, Ezetar admitted. The traditionalists grow stronger each day. They have begun activating defensive systems that have been dormant for centuries. As if to punctuate his statement, an emergency alert sounded from both Neves' communication device and the Supreme Counselor's equivalent. Imari checked his tablet and paled. Ambassador, the Terran vessel Intrepid reports being fired upon by Palaxian defense systems. Captain Valen has engaged defensive measures, but is requesting instructions. Ezetar's crystalline structure flashed with patterns of alarm. It has begun, he said simply. Ambassador Neves, what happens in the next few hours will determine whether 1,000 years of peace ends in a conflagration none of us may survive. All hands, battle stations, evasive pattern Delta 7. Captain Rona Valen of the Intrepid gripped her command chair as the ship executed a series of maneuvers no Concord vessel could match. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the practiced efficiency that came from years of drills no one had ever expected to use in actual combat. 3 Palaxian cruisers pursued them through the debris field of an ancient asteroid mining operation. Their energy weapons lanced through space, occasionally grazing the Intrepid's shields. Shields at 82%, reported Defensive Systems Officer Pax Morita. Their targeting algorithms are adapting to our movement patterns. Switch to randomized evasion, Valen ordered. Status of the fold drive? Chief Engineer Indira Kalani responded through the comm system. 3 minutes to full charge, Captain. The energy discharge from their weapons is actually helping our collection. Matrices. Valen allowed herself a grim smile. The Palaxians couldn't know that their attacks were inadvertently powering the very system they sought to neutralize. Captain, Communications Officer Alara Nasrin interrupted. Priority transmission from Ambassador Neves. Text only. Maximum encryption. Valen scanned the message on her personal display. Maintain defensive posture. Do not return fire or activate fold drive unless survival at risk. Concord leadership fragmented. Attempting diplomatic. Resolution. Captain, Tactical Officer Reza Dalir called out. I have a solution for their lead vessel. We could disable their propulsion without casualties. Valen shook her head. Negative. Defensive measures only. They're not showing the same restraint. Delir observed as another energy blast rocked the ship. Shields at 75%, Morita updated. Valen studied the tactical display. The Palaxians were herding them away from the system's jump points, trying to prevent any conventional escape. They didn't understand that the Intrepid needed no jump point to vanish from their grasp. New contact, Nasreen announced suddenly. Vessel approaching at high velocity. Configuration matches. Kelnari design. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Let's hear it, Valen ordered. A voice filled the bridge, translated in real time. Palaxian vessels, this is Archon Merev, of the Kelnari Defense Force. You are firing upon a diplomatic vessel in neutral space. Stand down immediately or face interdiction from Kelnari forces. The bridge crew exchanged surprised glances. The Kelnari were intervening? The Palaxians are responding, Nasrin reported. Audio only. This is Commander Vrax of the Palaxian. Collective Security Fleet. We are enforcing Concord Emergency Directive 793. The human vessel possesses unauthorized technology. Stand aside, Archon. The Kelnari response came swiftly. No such directive has been ratified by the full council. Your actions are illegal under Concord law. We are moving to protect the human vessel under Section 12 of the Charter. Protection of diplomatic entities. On the tactical display, Valen watched as the Kelnari vessel positioned itself between the Intrepid and the Palaxian cruisers. It was a decisive move. The Palaxians would have to fire on a fellow Concord member to continue their pursuit. Captain, Engineer Kalani's voice came over the comm. Fold drive fully charged and ready. Valen considered her options. They could escape instantly, but doing so would abandon the Kelnari vessel that had just intervened on their behalf. That wasn't the human way. Maintain position, she decided. Open a channel to the Kelnari vessel. When connected, Valen addressed the Kelnari commander directly. Archon Merev, this is Captain Valen of the Intrepid. We appreciate your intervention, but I must warn you that the Palaxians appear committed to their course of action. We can escape if necessary, and don't wish to see you endangered on our behalf. The Kelnari commander's image appeared on screen, aquatic features set in determined lines. Captain Valen, your concern is noted, but this is about more than your vessel. The Palaxians and their allies are attempting to enforce policies that were never properly approved. Many worlds within the Concord are watching what happens here. As if to confirm this assessment, Nasreen reported, Captain, we're detecting multiple vessels entering the area. Configurations match, 5 different Concord species. They're forming a defensive screen around us. Valen watched in amazement as the tactical display updated to show vessels from the Kelnari, Vesh, Marivix, and other species taking positions that effectively shielded the Intrepid from Palaxian weapons. We're receiving a joint transmission from all vessels, Nasreen announced. The main view screen displayed representatives from each of the newly arrived ships. A Vesh commander spoke first, crystalline surface reflecting determined patterns. Captain Valen, we represent member species who believe the Concord has lost its way. For too long, innovation has been stifled in the name of balance. Your arrival has forced a confrontation that was centuries in coming. A Marevix representative continued. Feathered crest raised in what their cultural database identified as resolute determination. The traditionalists would destroy your vessel rather than face change. We stand with you against this aggression, not just for humanity's sake, but for the future of a more dynamic Concord. Before Valen could respond, all communication channels flooded with a priority broadcast from Harmony Station. Supreme Counselor Ezitar appeared on screen, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent patterns. Attention all Concord vessels. Stand. Down immediately. By emergency powers granted under Charter Section 3, I am declaring a temporary suspension of all military operations. Any vessel firing upon another will be considered in violation of our most sacred principles and dealt with accordingly. For several tense moments, no one moved. The Palaxian cruisers maintained weapons lock, but ceased advancing. Then Ambassador Neves appeared alongside the Supreme Counselor, her expression solemn but resolute. "This is Ambassador Lyra Neves of the Terran Alliance. To all human vessels in Concord space, maintain your positions and defensive postures only. The Supreme Counselor and I have reached a preliminary agreement that will be presented to both the Concord Council and Terran Command within the hour." Neves paused, looking directly at the camera. What began as a first contact has become a catalyst for change. The Concord stands at a crossroads, and humanity stands with those who choose the path of progress over stagnation. As the transmission ended, Captain Valen turned to her bridge crew. Their faces reflected the gravity of the moment. They had arrived seeking peaceful contact and found themselves at the center of a civilization-spanning political crisis. "Orders, Captain?" asked First Officer Caspian Reed. Valen straightened in her command chair. "We maintain position and wait for further instructions. It seems we've made some allies today." Across Concord space, 17 human vessels held their positions, surrounded by growing numbers of ships from member species who had chosen sides in what would later be called the Concord Reformation. On Harmony Station, in a chamber where only the highest representatives of the founding species had ever gathered, Ambassador Neves and Supreme Counselor Estar drafted the Harmony Accords, a document that would fundamentally reshape the 1,000-year structure of the Concord. "You understand what you're proposing will change everything," Estar said, his crystalline structure reflecting complex patterns of concern and resignation. "Change was inevitable," Neves replied. "The question was only whether it would come, through conflict or cooperation." The Supreme Counselor's surface rippled with what might have been a sigh. 1,000 years of peace, maintained through careful balance and control. "Did we make a mistake?" "Peace without growth is stagnation," Neves observed. "Your founders created something remarkable, but all systems must evolve or collapse." "And humanity's role in this new Concord?" Estar asked. Neves smiled slightly. "Not conquerors, not saviors, partners. The fold drive will be shared, but gradually, with proper safeguards. And in exchange, humanity will learn from the 1,000 years of cooperation your people have mastered. There are aspects of the Concord worth preserving. Supreme Counselor." As they finalized the document, notifications arrived from across Concord space. The vessels surrounding the Intrepid had been joined by others. The Palaxians had withdrawn their cruisers. Reports indicated similar scenarios playing out around other human ships. "It seems the reformers have won the day," Estar noted. "Not won," Neves corrected. "Begun. What happens next will require wisdom from all of us." 3 days later, in the Grand Council chamber on Harmony Station, representatives from all 17,000 member systems witnessed the formal signing of the Harmony Accords. The document established a new framework, one that preserved the Concord's commitment to peace while creating controlled pathways for technological innovation and cultural diversification. Captain Orion Kask of the Horizon's Edge, the first human to enter Concord space, stood alongside Ambassador Neves as she addressed the assembled representatives. "One human ship," she began. "That's what it took to reveal both the strengths and weaknesses of your 1,000-year peace. Not because humanity is exceptional, but because change is inevitable. The greatest wisdom lies not in preventing change, but in guiding it." Supreme Counselor Estar spoke next, his crystalline form gleaming under the chamber's lights. "For a millennium, we preserved peace through stability. Now we must learn to maintain peace through managed evolution. The Harmony Accords represent not an ending, but a transformation." As the ceremony concluded, Captain Kask approached a group of representatives from the species that had stood with humanity during the crisis: the Kelnari, the Vesh, The Mreviks and others. I want to thank you, he said simply. You risked everything to protect principles you believed in. The Kelnari. Archon Merev's gill structures fluttered in what their cultural database identified as amusement. Perhaps we should thank you, Captain. For centuries, many of us watched innovation stifled, progress delayed, all in the name of balance. Your arrival forced a confrontation that was long overdue. And now? Kask asked. The Vesh commander's crystalline, surface-refracted patterns of cautious optimism. Now the real work begins. The traditionalists have not disappeared. They've merely retreated to consider their options. The Concord will face challenges in the years ahead. Humanity will stand with you, Kask promised. Later, aboard the Horizon's Edge, Kask reviewed the terms of the Harmony Accords with his senior staff. The document detailed a staged integration process for humanity, neither the complete technological surrender the traditionalists had demanded, nor the unrestricted exchange some reformers had hoped for. It's a compromise, First Officer Nassar observed. Some will be disappointed. All good diplomacy disappoints everyone equally, Kask replied with a slight smile. But it sets us on a path forward. As the Horizon's Edge prepared to return to Earth with news of the agreement, Kask took a moment to stand at the viewport, watching the spectacular swirl of the Meridan Nebula. Somewhere out there, 16 other human vessels were making similar preparations, each having played their part in what would become known as the Concord Reformation. One human ship, that's all it had taken to shatter 1,000 years of peace. But perhaps what emerged from those fragments would be stronger, more vibrant, and ultimately more enduring than what had come before. In the centuries that followed, historians would debate whether humanity had saved the Concord or destroyed it. The truth, as Captain Kask recorded in his final log entry before returning to Earth, was both simpler and more complex. We didn't break the Concord. We simply showed them the cracks that were already there, and together we've begun to build something new.